Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Scoop for Wednesday, July 7th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 57 days. The game against Michigan in 143 days. The past week or so has been every bit as crazy and busy around the Ohio State football program as a typical game week. That is obviously not normal for this time of year, but between three big commitments, a couple of major national events involving future Buckeyes, there's been a whole bunch to talk about recently. And as the host of Daily Podcast, I'm not complaining. Fine with me. But with all that big news, we haven't gotten a chance to take a look back at the opening event from last weekend at California. Three future Buckeyes were there to taking part in the Elite National Showcase. Buckeye Scoop recruiting analyst Marc Givler was there as well to scout it in person. Marc, you got a chance to see Quinn Ewers for, 4 days in a row, 5 days in a row between the Elite 11 and the opening. Did you come away thinking he lived up to all the hype?
I thought he was really good. I mean, it's hard, the bar is so high. Number one overall player. That immediately starts to draw comparisons to, guys like Trevor Lawrence. I didn't think he finished well. I thought he had a tough afternoon at the end of the opening. And at that point, they were already eliminated. So you have to wonder, the whole team kind of looked checked out at that point. They had been eliminated early from the 7-on-7. And so they were kind of playing out their last game and threw a couple interceptions and, didn't finish strong. But I actually thought he was pretty good at the Elite 11. I thought certainly, if you're looking beyond just did he hit the target, as much as the other guy hit the target, then, maybe you're a little underwhelmed. But when you actually watch him throw the football, you see right away why he's, ranked where he is. He's got an enormous arm and it's so effortless and he can throw from so many different angles. I certainly saw the 5-star talent, and it just, didn't come together for him on the last day, but I thought he had a pretty good week. I mean, he was number 2, I think, in the opening going into the last day. I thought the accuracy challenge, I actually didn't think he was that bad. I thought, again, the difference between getting it through the target and hitting the outside of the target, there's a point differential there, but he was hitting the target. So, like I said, I think it was, probably maybe a B or a B minus based on, what you would expect out of Quinn. But certainly, I don't think it was anything alarming or anything that, would justify, a drop in the ranking or anything like that.
Well, you and I talked last week as you were sort of going into this whole stretch about how scouting quarterbacks throwing against air at an event like the Elite 11 or even in like a 7-on-7 is not necessarily as valuable as watching them in game situations. So, did you come away with concerns? I mean, you said he kind of finished, middle of the pack or so last weekend and didn't finish particularly well. I mean, did you come away with concerns or was this just very much just like, you've seen the game film. Some guys are better in games than they are in events like this.
Yeah, I've seen, look, this guy leads one of the best programs in the country. He's a winner. We've seen him do it for, 3 years now. I'm not concerned. Like I said, I think they had kind of mailed it in there at the end. They lost 2 very close games on kind of like the final drive. And so at that point, it was basically double the round robin. They had been eliminated from the championship game at that point. And it was really ugly. The last game for everybody on that team. It just looked like they knew they were out and it was time to go home. So I don't hold that too much against him. I would maybe lean on the previous 4 days, which I thought were really good. And go from there. I mean, it just, it's one thing to throw against air and then 7-on-7 is kind of the next thing. And then, obviously real football 11-on-11 is the most important thing. And that'll be the thing that, I think people have been judging him on. And I think people will continue to judge him on versus, not just blowing the doors off things at the Elite 11.
And Quinn Ewers was not the only Buckeye at the opening this last weekend. CJ Hicks was there as well, 5-star linebacker. He's been, rocketing up the rankings over the past year or so. How much has he improved since the last time you saw him playing in person?
Yeah, well, it hadn't been that long for me. So, but yeah, what I think is most impressive about him right now is he is really filling out. He's getting really big. I made the Darren Lee comparisons kind of early in his career, but he's already where Darren would have been physically, probably Darren's second year at Ohio State. So he's really looking good right now. He looks like a real linebacker right now. Doesn't look like a safety that's trying to bulk up to play linebacker. He looks like a linebacker. The 7-on-7 portion, it's really not built for linebackers. That's actually kind of really anti-linebacker in the way the setup of the 7-on-7 format is. But, CJ was, I wouldn't say good or great or bad day two. There just wasn't a lot there either way, but was really good day one. Had an interception, had some pass breakups, was flying around the field. So I liked what I saw out of him. But we've got him number one in Ohio. We've had him there for a while now, and we've kind of been talking about him as a 5-star talent for a while now. So I wasn't, I liked what I saw, but I wasn't particularly surprised by it.
Didn't do anything to move down the rankings. I guess that's when you're a 5-star, that's probably a win right there.
It's a lot harder to move up when you're a 5-star than it is to move down. It's hard to move up once you're in the top 20. So.
Yeah, and the third Buckeye who was there is Keon Grayes. You mentioned you've seen CJ Hicks a bunch. CJ Hicks is located much more conveniently than Keon Grayes is for you to scout in person. He's also by far the least heralded of the 3 Ohio State commits who were at the opening. Had you actually seen Keon Grayes in person? And if not, what were your sort of initial impressions of him?
No, I hadn't really got a chance to just film. I hadn't seen him in person at all. And he was the best of the 3. We had the best week. He had the best week of the 3 Ohio State guys. There's going to be some Olave comparisons because of the way he plays. That's probably a little lofty just because of what we know Olave is now, but the way he is able to kind of separate without maybe being a true 4-3 guy was impressive. He was separating vertically, which was really impressive. But he was finding creases. It was impressive. He did everything he was supposed to do. Reminds me a little bit of how they got in on Jackson Smith and Jigba before I think people fully understood what he was. And by the time the All-American Bowl wrapped up, I thought Jackson Smith and Jigba was the best wide receiver in that class. And it had Julian Fleming in it and all those other guys. But, I'm not quite there on Keon because I kind of want to see how Caleb Burton comes back from injury for starters. But, if he ends up being the best receiver in this class for Ohio State, is it going to be that shocking? No, I don't think it will be. I think he does everything well. He's not a 6'4" guy. He's not a 4'3" guy, but my gosh, he lines up everywhere and he makes plays.
I'm starting to think that Ohio State might be kind of decent at both evaluating and recruiting wide receivers. I don't want to go way out on a limb there, but I'm starting to just sort of get that impression, at least sort of vaguely. I don't cover these events like you do. I have not been to the opening. I've not been to the Elite 11. But in my mind, anytime players get together for an event like that, just from all the way across the country, especially guys like Ewers and CJ Hicks, who is nicknamed Captain Buckeye because he is like a major recruiting assistant for Ohio State, as he is also a recruit. I assume that there's some recruiting and lobbying going on of the uncommitted prospects or guys who are potential flips. Was that anything you heard about, in terms of guys who maybe Ewers or Hicks was working on in terms of getting to come to Ohio State?
Well, first of all, had I known this NIL thing was going to be happening, I would have trademarked Captain Buckeye like a year and a half ago when I coined him that. So I'm kind of kicking myself right now. I probably should trademark that, right? But
yeah.
But no, he was working AJ Harris. CJ Hicks was really working AJ Harris. They were playing obviously on the same defense together, and obviously Xavier Nwampa as well. They trying to get both those guys. I know Xavier's a little further along maybe in terms of the relationships there with CJ and some of the other guys, but AJ Harris was a guy who has been up to campus this month and is very high on Ohio State, and I think Ohio State has a tremendous chance to land him. And CJ Hicks, I think, smelled blood in the water there a little bit, coming off a good visit there a couple weeks ago to Ohio State, and I think was really working that one. And they sure looked like they were having a lot of fun playing together.
Well, this is very clearly not the first time we've done a podcast together, because that was a very smooth transition to what my next question was, which was, there were a couple highly ranked recruits who just recently named their final groups of teams. AJ Harris was one of them. You guys just mentioned 5-star 2023 corner out of Alabama. He just dropped a top 13, which is inclusive. I don't know. It's expansive. It is a generous. There is room to roam inside that group of teams. Ohio State did make that cut. But it sounds like, based on what you just said, they're not just top 13. They may be top 2, top 3, top 1 at this point. How likely is it to you that he ends up a Buckeye based on what you're hearing right now?
I think it's pretty likely. I think they're in the driver's seat. There's a handful of teams I think that are truly involved right now. That I think that 13, and there's probably a lot of filler on that list. I think it's probably maybe a 4 to 5 team race at this point. I actually think Clemson is probably the school to watch if we're talking about, okay, who could crash the party here for Ohio State. I think it's probably Clemson. And stop me if you've heard that before. Ohio State versus Clemson for a corner, but that seems to be a theme. But the interesting thing is he's got these late July visits coming up. He's still working through that. I think Clemson is actually going to take priority because that's the one school that I think is in contention that his mom didn't visit yet. The parents were able to get around to all the other schools basically in June that I think have a shot, except Clemson. Mom had to work, just couldn't get off work that day. Couldn't make that happen with them. So I think they'll prioritize that just so mom can see Clemson and have some perspective there. But it wouldn't shock me if he's back at Ohio State at the end of July. I know they're looking into it. They're trying to mix and piece this schedule together. And if he's not, either way, whether he is or he isn't, he'll be back at Ohio State for a football game in the fall. And I would be surprised if he's not at the Oregon game.
Well, that's coming up pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. Not too far, that Oregon game. And the other guy I wanted to ask you about, Eni White, 2022 edge rusher from Philadelphia. He is going to be dropping his final 4 at some point soon. It may have already happened by the time you hear this. As of Tuesday night, it hasn't happened yet. He visited Ohio State a couple weeks ago. Is he someone you think is a serious candidate to end up a Buckeye, or do they have some ground to make up there?
Well, before the visit, I would not have been so sure if they would have made a top 4. Now I'm thinking they will. So that's certainly progress here in the past month. I still am not quite buying it as far as Ohio State being a favorite, but I think they've made up some real ground here on that visit. They're fighting against a bunch of the SEC schools here. Georgia, Alabama kind of use that stand-up outside backer, edge rusher type of player. Ohio State really doesn't. More of a traditional 4-3. So there's some scheme stuff there that I think Eni is working through. I think that was really hurting Ohio State for a while. I think the visit with Ohio State with Larry Johnson cleared a lot of that up. They were really able to sit there and kind of go over with him, hey, this is why you should be here and not in a 3-4 somewhere. This is why this scheme does make sense for you. And so I think a lot of that was cleared up, and I think that's helped them. But still some work to do. But quite frankly, even if he drops this top 4 like today or tomorrow, I'm not so sure this one's going to be over that soon. I tend to think this is still going to go into the fall. And so I think if you're Ohio State, you just kind of want to keep this thing going, keep the ball in play, and try and get a visit for a game in the fall and just kind of keep working it and see what happens.
Yeah, that is going to be one worth watching, and a great place to watch that and watch all the other stuff we're talking about today. Hey, BuckeyeScoop.com. We've had a really, really busy couple months on that. Ask the Insiders board. Our team of insiders has been working overtime. Keep seeing messages about like, hey, this is like the best site I have ever seen. This is signing up for the site is the best thing I've ever done. Like there has been a stream of those messages. Everyone was pretty happy after the JT Tuimoloau thing, but it was I think our team of insiders was pretty calm and rational and on top of things, and probably helped keep everyone's blood pressure in check as they were stressing out about that. And it's fine. Just trust us. It's fine. So if you want to lower your blood pressure and also get access to our fantastic team of insiders and the best Buckeye coverage on the internet, just go to BuckeyeScoop.com and sign up for a membership today. Get access to all of our insiders, our Ask the Insiders board, lots of cool membership perks and more. It's all at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Subscribe right there. Just hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, just youtube.com/BuckeyeScoop. Hit that subscribe button. You get notified every time we post a new video. Marc posted a ton of video from the Elite 11, the opening, all sorts of stuff. We had a ton of video at Ohio State camps all June. Lots of player interviews, coach interviews coming up. Big Ten Media Days is coming up in just a couple weeks. We'll have all sorts of video from there. And of course, all of our great podcasts as well. If you want to just throw those on your TV as you're making breakfast in the morning or whatever, it's a great way to keep up to date with all the Ohio State stuff, and also not take a big chunk out of your day. Just do it while you're making breakfast or packing the kids' lunches for school or whatever it is, and keep up to date with all that stuff. It's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You just need to subscribe and then get notified every time we post a new video. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.